Lou Holtz once famously said that college football is impossible to predict because a different team shows up every week. And ironically, his former Fighting Irish proved that point last week at home against Northern Illinois, coming off that big win against Texas A&M on the road. The Irish lay an egg, the egg of the season thus far, as a 29-point favorite against Northern Illinois, losing in the final seconds. The Irish look to bounce back against an old Big Ten rival, a game that we used to see every year, Notre Dame at Purdue. And the Irish, Steve, a 9.5-point favorite in this one on the road.
Yeah, and very strange. And correct me if I'm seeing this wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, Purdue's played one game, right? They had the bye last week.
Yes.
Indiana State on August 31st. I had to triple check that, Mark, when I saw it, because I was like, that makes no sense to me unless something was canceled. And very interesting scheduling spot. And I do think that gives Purdue a little bit of an edge, being at home with an extra week to prepare. And then, of course, you do have to worry about the mindset of Notre Dame. And you and I talked about Notre Dame back in week one, the Texas A&M game, and that was a big win for them. And you mentioned how that was kind of an elimination game for maybe both those teams. And by the way, we break down that Florida-Texas A&M game on the team channels as well this week. That's a tight contest. But, it was a huge win for Notre Dame. I'm going to assume they had a letdown, losing as a 28-point favorite outright last week and only scoring 14 points in that game. But the fact remains they can't get a conference automatic bid. They only play 5 ACC games. That was a huge blow. In fact, I don't know. I'll let you weigh in on it. I'm not sure even if they run the table, can they overcome that? Maybe, I guess, with the one loss. But they need to run the table now to have a chance, in my opinion, to be one of the 12 playoff teams. And I think you have to be very careful about a letdown. In fact, if you just look over the blind for decades now, teams that start 5, 6, 7-0 or better, and they suffer that first loss a couple months into the season, they normally are about a 40% play against the spread the next game. I think this is one of those situations here. And the fact that Purdue has some extra time to prepare, I do think the scheduling spot looks favorable for the Boilermakers, but now we have to make sure there's line value. My database simulation, 10,000 games run through the database, has Notre Dame winning by average by 10 points. That's interesting because the opening line was Purdue as a 12.5-point dog. Now they're only a 9.5-point dog. So we've lost that very key number of 10, and it's pretty much where it should be now. So maybe at 10 or more, we start getting interested again in Purdue. I would be very careful with Notre Dame this week. They could bounce back and have a big win, but that was a bad loss last week.
Steve, to your previous point about the Irish and their playoff hopes, one of their 3 to 4 big games this year is not looking like a marquee event. Florida State on the schedule.
Good point.
Here in about 6 weeks. So that takes away one of the big games for Notre Dame in a sparse schedule as it stands right now. So they're counting on teams like Louisville and Texas A&M to pick up the pace. And that seems pretty unlikely in terms of marquee wins for the Irish. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com is the place to be for Steve's work on the NFL, college football, of course, and the Major League Baseball playoffs are coming up soon. Steve's Under the Radar exclusive right here at the Voice of College Football, 23-5 against the spread. You can find out more about Steve's selection right now. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly Under the Radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.